Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
your one and only quarantine bearded assistant sports editor, Andy Anders.
I'm your assistant sports director, Khalid.
And I'm your wonderful sports editor, Griffin Strom. Brian, what do we have today, baby?
Well, honestly, Griffin, we do not have a ton of actually new news to actually cover. This has been probably our first quiet week of a lack of stuff going on in the sporting world for Ohio State since Indy. Even with no sports going on, we've still had a ton of information to cover with just Ohio State going crazy and recruiting for football, all the transfers happening in basketball, and just general NCAA news going on. But finally, we just don't have a ton to really talk about. But Andy's here with Working Internet, so we can kind of pick off where we left off last week, where we were going to kind of dive into talking about the offensive line and defensive line and kind of preview that. And it kind of works out that we can do it this week because Ohio State did get another recruit this week. That's one of the few pieces of news we have. Who wants to talk about that first?
The recruit or the line?
Well, the recruit, and then we can segue into the line.
All right. The recruit was on the defensive line, which is Tunmise, and I really don't want to mispronounce his last name. Adeleye. I don't know. I'm just going to say. But he, fifth top 50 prospect in this class. They have 5 top 50 prospects now. He's 41st overall in the country in the consensus rankings. Highly rated defensive end who will pair nicely with Jack Sawyer at the opposite side. And the Buckeyes are going to have 4, by the time this is all said and done, they might have 4 top 100 D-line prospects, 2 at DN with 5-star Jack Sawyer, who's the number 3 overall recruit in the country from Ohio, Tunmise, and then you've got another top 100 recruit from Ohio in defensive tackle Mike Hall. And potentially they're the leader for the number 2 recruit in the country, a 5-star defensive tackle by the name of JT, another hard name to pronounce here, Tuimolaulo. Is that what it was? JT. But yeah, they have the potential to land 4 top 100 prospects on the D-line now, and 2 of them 5 stars. So, a big name on the recruiting trail. Ryan Day and company are now ahead of Clemson by 69 points for the top class. It's ridiculous, this 2021 group they're assembling.
Yeah, very nice. Man, this recruiting class is just insane. We were talking about this earlier in the week in our group chat, but Khalid mentioned how if you took the current 2021 recruiting class and put it in the 2020 rankings, it already would be 6th in the country, and they only have 16 recruits overall. It's insane, honestly. But
yeah, they're averaging the star rating. They're averaging over 95. They're averaging a 9.552 rating, which no one in the country averaged even 93 last year. Oddly enough, this year Clemson is averaging a higher star rating, but they only have 10 commitments. So we'll see if that holds up as they continue to fill out their class.
Yeah, and Ohio State still is on track for at least. We mentioned the one defensive tackle who's a 5-star, but I think there's a couple other 5-stars that they're in the mix for as well. I think 3 more.
Yeah, what's his name? He's the number 7 overall recruit.
Yeah, let's just pull up someone pull up a list. I'm recording, so. But also, it looks like Andy might be having some internet issues, but we'll see if he can pull that here.
He's taking a call.
Griffin, what's your take on the way this class is shaping up?
It's absurd. It's not unexpected to me, though. This is what Ohio State kind of is now. It's just it will be interesting to see if they can take the next step from being kind of in that 3-4 range, to being in that 1 to 2 range of, potentially getting to a couple national title games in a row or something like that, in the same way that a Clemson and Alabama has been able to do in recent years. Of course, Ohio State has been in the playoffs several times, but only got to the championship the one year. It'll be interesting to see if these recruiting classes in a few years will pay off in a way where we see Ohio State, get to that next level.
What's interesting though is like we've seen Alabama have their, I don't want to say a decade, but it was like I want to say like 6 years of like just pure dominance where they were pretty much either projected or ended up in the national championship game every year. And then we see Clemson these past 4 or 5 years kind of go on the same kind of run that Alabama has. And it's interesting to see like Ohio State has been on the verge these past, 2-3 years? But they've always been on the verge. But I'm saying like realistically, they've made it very, very close into the top 4, like Griffin was saying, in the past couple of years. But it's interesting to see now with these recruiting classes, will they make that jump? And I feel like this is a very important year for them to make that jump into the top 2 and being that national championship title game year in and year out. And it's very scary to think that, like, if Ohio State's recruiting classes are this good with them being in that 3 to 4 range, imagine how crazy it can get once they start becoming in that consistently 1 and 2 range if they go on this tear for the next 5 years or whatever.
Especially since a lot of the coaches at Ohio State seem to, for the most part, be committed to staying for the near future, at least a couple of years. People like Kerry Coombs, I don't think he's leaving anytime soon. I think he's here to stay. I think Al Washington's here for what were we saying, Cliff?
What's crazy about that is, like, I feel like an important key that a lot of people forget is, like, on the offensive side of things, no matter what happens with coaching, they will forever be dominant because their biggest offensive genius is the head coach and Randy. And then on the defensive side of things, their biggest defensive geniuses are older guys who aren't really looking to get head coaching jobs elsewhere anytime soon, You have Kerry talking about, and then, wow, I don't know why his name is skipping my mind. The co-defensive coordinator last year. Not halfway. Griffin, what's his name? What'd you say?
Greg Madison.
Greg Madison, yes. So you have Greg Madison and Kerry Combs. Those two guys are very experienced, older guys who you don't really see anytime soon. So on the offensive side of things, they have things checked out with Ryan Day, and on the defensive side of things, they have things checked out with Kerry Combs and Greg Madison. So it's not like they have a bunch of young, like offensive-minded or young defensive-minded geniuses who in the next couple of years are going to be in contention for head coaching jobs elsewhere. Load into the, like, say, for example, Brian Hartline decides to go leave for an offensive coordinator position somewhere else. Like, I'm sure they'll find someone to just jump in and replace him. It's not going to be that crazy of a job to do. Like, obviously, Ohio State's a competitive paying school, but they're the only school to be paying their 4 assistants $1 million this coming season, which is already ridiculous. But it just goes to show this team is, like, constructed to where I don't see it breaking up anytime soon as far as coaches.
Yeah, and Hartline.
Ohio State. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, Ohio State, just going off that, Clint, has the best infrastructure in the country. When you talk about what they're willing to pay for facilities, for coaches, the administration, all of that, the amount of support they have from their athletic department, from the university, is there's no other school in the country with the resources Ohio State has, really. Even when you look at a Clemson or an Alabama amount, I know Clemson used to be paying their assistants more than Ohio State, but the facilities and the investment that's constantly fed into the Ohio State program really isn't equal anywhere else. And it continues to set them apart on the recruiting trail when you can take advantage of those resources.
It's funny.
We've been saying with this ridiculous class, when you know how to take advantage of those resources, there's really no one who can touch you, and you have a face that everyone can connect with in Ryan Day. It's kind of a lethal.
When you say that, Andy, because just like 2 days ago, I don't know why, but I forget where I was looking at this, but I was looking online at Alabama's, like, indoor facilities and indoor football field, Clemson's indoor football field, Ohio State's, and all these like top schools, right? And I was thinking to myself, like, Ohio State is already so elite in all these aspects, but I feel like their indoor fields compared to these other programs is kind of outdated in a sense. But I feel like I'm just me thinking off the like craziness, but I feel like renovations aren't like ending anytime soon. Like Ohio State is just continuing to get so much money, and they're gonna continue to like extend their lead on facilities and things like that. And I feel like their indoor facility, as far as their indoor football field, is gonna be one that's gonna be renovated here soon, possibly. That's just my random.
I mean, I can absolutely see renovations happening, in the near future, maybe when all this coronavirus stuff settles and things return to some sense of normalcy. But even just like not with football, but like a lot of facilities have been getting upgrades for Ohio State sports. Like the Covelli Center just got built for like volleyball and wrestling, and that's really nice. Women's hockey is getting their own arena built. So Ohio State's investing in a lot of these programs and really want them all to succeed. And they definitely want football to succeed. So.
Ohio State's been spending a lot of money on the other areas of their Woody Hayes Athletic Center, like the locker room, the players' lounges, the basketball.
Yeah, the lounge just got that huge upgrade. Yeah.
The lounges, all that stuff got the upgrade. So I'm thinking they probably took care of that stuff now so that players have a place to go now. But I feel like their indoor football field facility is going to be the next on their list to kind of renovate and make it a lot more modern. Because right now it's really nice, but I don't know. Like I was looking at other schools and I was like, dang, these schools look like Alabama's and Clemson's. Theirs just kind of look a lot more updated. And I was like, it's probably on Ohio State's list here soon. And
definitely.
if they recruiting is going to be even more easier for them.
Could definitely use some air conditioning there. Just saying.
That's very true.
Because man, in August and September, it was hot there when we went there for some media availabilities.
We were even playing, man.
This is really random, but like speaking about indoor football fields, I've been to Tennessee's indoor football field, and that thing is a piece of beauty. Like it's mind-boggling how they are so average in recruiting because their facilities.
Tennessee actually, a few years ago they were always getting good recruits. They kind of Butch Jones was a good recruiter but terrible developer. So they had to, if you go back and look, Tennessee's had some good classes over the years.
Yeah.
And then
I guess they
not recently.
Not recently, although they started to play somewhat better on the field despite not having the best recruiting classes necessarily.
They actually stole a quarterback from Ohio State, I think in 2015. His name was Jarrett Garantano. And he had an okay career at Tennessee, but he was committed to Ohio State when he flipped to Tennessee.
It's really interesting looking like 15 years back, where like Tennessee was like one of the biggest teams in like the South and just like one of the premier teams in the SEC. And slowly we've kind of seen Tennessee start to fall, and Clemson's kind of risen to kind of take that like geographical spot with like in that recruiting pipeline. It's really just been interesting to see how that's transpired, because if you go back and watch like the blind side, Tennessee is like a huge obstacle just in terms of like how good they were as a team back then. And that happened 15 years ago for those events. Yeah. So it's interesting how things change over the course of 5-10 years. I mean, just look at what happened to Michigan State in the past 5 years. They went from making the playoffs to now having 3-win seasons. So,
speaking of that, do you guys think there are any teams other than obviously the Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Oregon, and those schools, like that you could see within the next year or two becoming a sleeper into a contender? Kind of like how Washington at one point became this.
Well, yeah, I think you always have one or two dark horses that emerge just in general. I mean, it's been that way, but the powers will always stay the powers. I had someone – I mean, you realize – I think what's crazy, though, is that Ohio State's kind of the only program that's since they started their run of dominance in the 50s has never hit a wall. They had 1 year, 2011, the transition year between Tressel and Meyer, where they were 6-6, made a bowl game. But really, it is incredibly rare for them to fall below 9 wins. And if you look back in history, I think it's like the beginning of the Cooper era. He might have gone like 6-6 once. But there's never like a multi-year span where Ohio State's below 9 since the 50s.
Going off of that, Khalid, I don't know if I necessarily can point to a specific team, but I do think the way Alabama played this year and how they kind of weren't the same juggernaut that they have been in recent years, and they didn't make the playoffs for the first time since the playoff era started. Yeah, because of Tua's injury, but I don't know. I'm still wondering, maybe not this year or like this coming year, or maybe even next year, maybe in a couple years, depending on when Saban retires, because he's getting up there in age, or just whether another team starts to rise like LSU, you might see some new SEC teams like reclaim the top spot. I can see Florida really improving.
Continuing to get the recruits.
Georgia's really good. Florida is really building up a strong program right now, and even though LSU has lost so much like talent and coaching, I still think they're going to be a very strong contender as well.
I think it'll be good this coming year.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, I don't know. I just feel like they've lost a little too much of talent. But
I don't think this year, but I'm saying like in the next, like say 5-year stretch. I can see
long-term success.
I think LSU's built for long-term success. I don't think this is just going to be a one-year thing.
I just think Texas will ever be back into that elite.
I mean, someday maybe. I'm not sure it'll be under Herman anymore.
You would think they should be, because Texas is another school like Ohio State where they have all the resources and funds necessary.
And you're in the number one state for football talent.
The number one state for football, and you have everything. All the stars are aligned for you to be a perennial contender. And I wouldn't – like it's strange. They should be contending with Oklahoma every single year for the Big 12 championship.
What do you guys think is Texas's problem? Do you guys feel like it's because Texas as a state just has too many big football schools?
Honestly, I don't think it's that. Texas, I mean, it's not like Ohio State's dominance over Ohio schools where, everyone else's have been major. But honestly, Baylor's been in a lull for years until Rule got there and turned it around recently. But Texas should really have been killing the recruiting game recently, other than I guess TCU provides some competition. But most players aren't going to go to TCU because of TCU's a private school, right? And I think a lot of players, TCU doesn't get recruits like Texas does ever.
But then we also have to look at a school like Texas A&M, which gets decent recruiting.
Texas A&M does get decent recruits, but Texas is the brand in Texas.
It is.
Not to the extent that Ohio State is in Ohio, but Texas has a much deeper talent pool than Ohio. Not that many states do, but Texas does. For me, one of Herman's issues has been his assistant hires. Herman's a great recruiter and a great offensive mind. Those haven't been issues as much. They have lost some recruiting battles, but Tim Beck, offensive director, he's just a questionable assistant hires, and he has this ego where he doesn't want to listen to anyone tell him his staff isn't up to snuff. And eventually, some of it Texas has just been. What year is he in now at Texas? 4 or 5.
Yeah, this is going to be. I think this is going to be his 5th year.
His players now, and they're still going. 7. What were they? 7-5 last year. With one highly overrated quarterback, Sam Ehlinger. You guys remember? You guys know Wyatt, of course. Wyatt and I always had a debate because he loves Sam Ehlinger and I despise him.
You know what, Andy? Go ahead and tell the audience why you do not like Sam Ehlinger.
Sam Ehlinger, he's just not. Every game he just makes a few throws where you really question. He's a terrible decision maker and he's not decisive. Not terrible decision. He's very undecisive. He holds the ball for way too long in the pocket every game I watch, and he takes so many sacks that are his fault. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's his O-line," but he holds the ball forever. and he never throws it. You gotta get rid of the ball. You know,
But it's hard.
if your O line is bad.
God, Texas really lost
But
to
he's got
Maryland
the heart
last
of a
year.
champion.
What'd you say,
No,
Griff?
that's 22.
Got the heart of a champion, dude.
Heart of a champion. Right. Dude is too indecisive with the football. Does he have a great arm? Sure. He doesn't use it. He's not confident.
We got a little off topic with the whole.
We are way off.
We are off topic, but it's good. It's good
not real
content.
topic, so
Yeah.
hard
I
to
know,
stay
There's
on
not a
top.
lot to talk
Not a
about.
topic.
All right, let's shift things back to what we're going to talk about. Let's preview the offensive line and defensive line for Ohio State in this upcoming year, because they are two very important positions for this team, and they are probably two of the deepest positions aside from wide receiver for Ohio State this coming year. Especially all the talent on offensive line really has me excited. And
Yeah, well,
as our O-line expert, what's your take?
I think the last decade of Ohio State football has produced some nationally elite offensive lines. You look at 2014 and 15, even 2013, you could argue, had one of those nationally elite offensive lines. This past year, 2019, the offensive line had been kind of in a lull. Like, they'd been okay for a few years. This past year, they were out of this world. You know, you talk about 5 all Big Ten players on an offensive line starting. I think this could be the best offensive line of any of them. I think Wyatt Davis is the best interior lineman in the country. You watch him on film, probably would have been a day 2 pick this year if he didn't come out. Maybe even with a great combine. Well, and say pro day, but no, there's no pro day anymore. So I think he, under normal circumstances, non-COVID circumstances, if he came out this year, could have fought his way into a late round 1 selection, but definitely day 2 that could be a comeback. Decides to come back. I think he's the best interior lineman in the country. Physically, just as gifted as you can come, prototypical as an athlete for the guard position. When you talk about the versatility of both strength, speed, and tremendous footwork that allows him to pull and lead and climb to the second level like you need to at that position. The position I played, not with nearly as much success, but he's the centerpiece of the line for me, on a line full of potential centerpieces. Then next to him is center Josh Meyers, of course, and those two were just a 1-2 knockout punch the past year. And they're returning. They have a bond as close as anyone on the team when you hear them talk about each other. Josh and Wyatt are incredibly close, and it shows on the field. And Josh is another who could be honestly another All-American. Wyatt's going to be in a first-team All-American likely, barring injury. And Josh could get himself in contention for the Remington Award. Thayer Munford's back at left tackle as an All-Big Ten selection, no issues there. Former 5-star Nick Petit-Frere is a likely starter at right tackle to replace Brandon Bowen, who he was in competition with last season. Nick is a former top 10 overall recruit. So you'd expect in his 3rd season that he's going to produce. And then at left guard, you're probably going to have 5-star Harry Miller, former 5-star Harry Miller in his 2nd season at Ohio State, who's sliding over from center. And I mean, the dude, everything about him screams elite interior offensive lineman, whether it's his size, his strength, his work ethic, talking to him, his knowledge of the game, and the praises from his coaches and his teammates. There's no hole on this offensive line. In fact, there's no spot on this offensive line where you don't have an elite talent. All of them except Munford were top 50 recruits, and Munford's produced at that level. So someone else can jump on now.
Yeah. Griffin and Khalid, what are you thinking?
Well, I was just going to say, the offensive line, while it did feature some super elite guys last year, there were some issues. It was not a perfect offensive line. At times they did have struggles with the pass protection and stuff like that. So I was going to throw to you guys, what makes you think that some of those issues could be cleared up next year?
I
don't know.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I'll let you talk first because I was
just about to say, I feel like the only thing that makes me think like this offensive line could have their their stuff figured out is due to the simple fact that last year you had guys like Jonah Jackson, who was new to this program, right? And you have guys like Nicholas Petit-Frere and Harry Miller and those guys who are jumping in, who are gonna have a year and maybe two for Nick, under their belt, right? So I think just that experience of practicing with these units and practicing with the twos, and then also having game experience, jumping in with the ones during like spurts of the season, will give this offensive line like that type of chemistry, and that guys like Jonah Jackson and whatnot. Yes, they played amazing last season, right? But first of all, returning 3 starters and then also adding 2 more guys who were into the program for about a year or two, that'll just add chemistry and everything. I feel like just over time that helps things click.
Mhm. I think another thing that kind of factors in also for Petit-Frere, he's had game experience. He played a fair amount last year because they rotated him in for Brandon Bowen at times, and he played pretty well when he got the chance got the chance. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily concerned about him. I think he's really going to lock things down at right tackle. So, Andy, what are you thinking?
Well, here's they had issues early on with the pass protection. It just didn't as much late. They didn't have a ton of things wrong. When teams mixed and threw some odd fronts at them, they had some issues. But I think what was it when they played like a Wisconsin who threw odd fronts at them, and Wisconsin had an otherworldly defensive coordinator, and you stunned it on. It wasn't a lot of guys getting beat one-on-one is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Wisconsin also had like the best linebacking core in the country, arguably.
Right. When you tried to go one-on-one with any of the offensive linemen, it was you didn't get anywhere. I don't know why I'm struggling over my words right now. The defensive lines that they faced were not able to overpower them. One-on-one, man-to-man, it was never an issue. There were some issues with protections getting set in certain games. There were certain games the offensive line was dominant, pass pro. Not the first Wisconsin game by any means, or the Michigan State game, but the Penn State game they played phenomenally. If I remember right, I got to look real quick. What was that? They I don't know. But not
not that it was a super tough opponent, but they played great against Nebraska. I remember thinking that a lot, and that was
right. There were certain games where they held their own very well on the pass pro, and others where they didn't.
They did pretty well against Michigan.
I don't know what to chalk up that inconsistency to. I will say, in the run game, they were phenomenal the entire season. But obviously, we're talking about pass protection here. I think some of the issues with pass pro came from tight ends. There were a lot of pass blocking issues when tight ends were called in as extra blockers in certain sets. JK was fine as a pass blocking back, but there were situations where a Rashad Berry or Luke Farrell got beat off the edge. Yeah, so some of those pass protection issues did come from the tight ends as well. I wouldn't check it all up to the offensive line, but I don't know. One-on-one guys weren't getting beat is my point here, and if they can figure out the chemistry and the communication of it all, then that issue should be rectified.
Yeah. I agree. I do think that so long as they have enough time to have like a typical like training camp, like season permitting, whenever it happens, I think this offensive line should be fine. And even with the tight ends and any issues that come with like pass blocking from there, all the tight ends are going to be returning players as well. So that's a pretty deep position in terms of how Ohio State wants to utilize them. Someone like Jeremy Ruckert, I think, could have a really nice year, despite the fact like the wide receivers are going to be insane. I think he can be a really kind of a sleeper weapon Ohio State likes to roll out. What do you guys think about that? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just looking. Michigan was the game I was thinking of. Michigan's, who always, had one of the best defenses in the country, only had one sack against Ohio State at the end of the year. It was a split sack between Glasgow and Baltimore. So, and then there was just a few seconds. But yeah, Brian, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
I was talking about how any pass blocking issues with the tight ends might be fixed, and the fact that they're all going to be returning players. They've all been in the program, and that is stuff that can be fixed. And the tight end position is pretty deep in terms of the type of sets they can roll out. Jeremy Ruckert really stands out to me as someone that they can utilize more in the passing game, even though the receivers are pretty insane and loaded. Just we saw when he got a chance to shine last year, especially like if you look at the Wisconsin game in the Big Ten Championship, he had some key plays.
Ruckert's was so underutilized last season. I thought. I think they need to throw him the ball more.
Yeah.
He's a supreme talent at tight end, and whenever they went to him, he made some spectacular plays, especially like that one-handed grab. What was that? The Big Ten title game.
Big Ten title game. That was
grab in the back of the end zone.
I think that was like the first touchdown they got in the second half. I think that was the first touchdown they got in the second half. Then they got a field goal, and then they took the lead for good. But I think Ruckert was the guy who got it going in the second half, scoring wise. Which, that was quite the comeback. That was 24 unanswered points in the second half against Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting position to see. I wasn't necessarily thinking of talking about the tight ends today, just because we aren't necessarily expecting to be used that much, just with how good the wide receivers are at Ohio State. But Brian Day still did utilize them more and ran some, single back formations that had about 2 tight end sets, and they seem to work pretty well with Fields in the passing game. So I'm curious to see if Day continues to throw new formations at us that get the tight ends in the mix. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we saw a lot less tight end usage toward the end of the year as we saw them, because Rucker had 2 touchdowns in the first game. They went a lot of 2 tight end sets, multi-tight end sets when they came out to run the ball. They involved a lot more power schemes in general with Dobbins, but you wonder what is Sermon's strength as a back, and what is this offensive strength going to be? Because if there's anything we know about Ryan Day, is that he's very adaptable, and he's going to structure an offense that exploits his talent the best. So if that means multiple tight ends on the field, that means for some power sets, or maybe you feel that it's better to have a couple tight ends out there if you feel there's some holes at receiver, not that we think there will be, then that's what he'll do. If you think it's better to just go with those options and do some of the Urban Meyer style 4 wides, then that's probably what we'll see. Mm-hmm. But I think that Day is going to structure it best around what his talent is.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've talked about the offensive line and tight ends enough. Do we want to shift focus over to talking about how the defensive line is going to shape up next year, especially with Chase Young being gone to the NFL draft? How are you? What Griffin and Khalid, what are you guys thinking about the defensive line? Who are you expecting to step up?
My only initial thought, based on almost nothing, is that am I wrong to question how good a Tommy Togiai or a Haskell Garrett might be? Because I've got an uneasy feeling.
My thing is this: I don't think they need to be as good, to be honest. I feel like as long as they have a good rotation, I feel like what Davon Hamilton was able to produce last year is kind of unrealistic. That's a lot of pressure to put on these other guys. But I feel like just their production, Haskell Garrett's a good player. Tommy Togiai is a good player. But we don't need them to be studs, We don't need them to be superstars on the defensive line wrecking havoc. As long as they do their job, you can let the guys on the outside help them. So you have guys like Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith, Javonte, Jean-Baptiste, and those guys able to help them. And then you have the linebacking court who's been there for a little bit, and they're a little more experienced. As long as they work as a unit, I think those guys' jobs will be a little easier, and it'll be it won't be as bad, you know?
Yeah.
Griffin on Haskell, I hear you, because I feel like he's kind of been inconsistent when I watched him play. That 3-tech position in general, you're going to have him. Teron Vincent back off injury as a former 5-star will be interesting to see how he factors in, and Antoine Jackson could see reps at either 1 or 3. That 3-tech in general, though, is one of concern for me. Not that I think they won't have a guy there that'll be solid, but I don't think it'll be the level that Sean Cornell produced at times. But Togiai at the 1 has he's got a skill set that's very similar to Devon Hamilton's. You talk about an imposing, physical, super strong, at the point of attack type of player, and that's what a 1-tech is in general. But almost certain aspects are enhanced. We've always heard he's the strongest player on the team. He didn't see the reps behind 2 fifth-year seniors at the 1-tech last year to really expose himself as I think this star talent he is. I really think he's going to be a lockdown to that 1-tech. 3-tech I'm not so sure about, but I think Togiai at the 1 will be a tremendous piece. I don't know who behind him is going to provide the depth that Larry Johnson loves to rotate at defensive line. I mentioned Antoine Jackson, who can play either, but I'm not sure if he's going to be.
Ohio State has a couple defensive tackle recruits coming in that could fill in, don't they?
Yeah, but linemen take at least a year to develop in college.
They take at least a year to develop, but like we could see 1 or 2 of them maybe getting some reps if depth is an issue at defensive tackle.
Yeah,
and they were both 4-stars, right? So,
right. I don't know who's going to be the 1-tech behind Togiai if it's not Antoine Jackson. Last year too. I mean, last year it was Togiai, Landers, and Hamilton. Landers and Hamilton seniors. Mm-hmm. So. I'll be curious to see who fills up that 1-tech spot if it's not Antoine.
Yeah. Ohio State definitely has a lot of the depth at defensive end that I am really excited to see step into the hole that like Chase Young is leaving. And I was reading an article in The Athletic a couple of days ago where they were interviewing Nick Bosa, and he was kind of like profiling Chase Young, what he's kind of expecting from him in his first year at the NFL. But they also asked Bosa like a question of who do you think is going to be like the next big defensive end at Ohio State. And I was expecting him to say Zach Harrison, but he actually thinks that Tyreek Smith is going to have a breakout year over Harrison. And I'm curious for what you guys think on that. Because I can see Tyreek Smith having a really solid year in 2020 as soon as he gets played.
Gotta stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been an issue lately, but I think, I don't know, something about him. He has the praises of Chase Young and the Bosas, which is obviously high praise. But, like, I haven't seen – he's shown flashes for sure in his first 2 seasons, especially this past year. He had a couple plays here and there where he got to the quarterback. I just haven't seen it from him consistently. And usually you do by year 2. And, again, maybe that was the injuries. He dealt with that last year. Harrison's just such a talent, though, and such a stud, and just such an incredible work ethic, too. Listening to him talk about refining his game, listening to Larry Johnson talk about him, and just the fine-tuning that you need to do to be the technical type of pass rusher that Ohio State constantly churns out. That said, I think why not both? They could both be stud defensive ends coming off the edge, kind of Nick Bosa and Chase Young before Nick got hurt 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Not that Chase was what he was this season 2 years ago, but that kind of 1-2 punch. Cooper will be factoring in as well, so you wonder if that works out. If Harrison will even be the starter, it might be Tyreek Smith and Jonathan Cooper.
And then you have to wonder how Javonte Jean-Baptiste factors in as well, because he'll be –
yeah, I think he and Tyler Friday will be the two. I mean, Ohio State grows 5 deep at defensive end all the time. So both John Baptiste and Tyler Friday, I imagine, will get reps there. Noah Potter even can see the field this year. He was a 4-star. He was talented.
What are you guys
So
expecting?
we'll see.
What are your guys' predictions for Jonathan Cooper this upcoming year? Because last year was just very strange with all of the injuries he had. He just had his year like cut short, but people still seem to have like very high expectations for him this upcoming year at Ohio State. How do you guys think he'll play?
He can stay healthy. I would expect a big year from him. I mean, he's definitely going to be the outspoken vocal leader. I mean, even when he was injured this year, you saw him still going through the drills pregame. He's a fired up guy all the time. He'll be a fifth-year senior, right?
Yeah, I think
I've said in the past, like going into this season, all the storyline about Jonathan Cooper was like, he's finally going to have, like, this is going to be his year to finally break out in his senior year. But he didn't really get that chance this year. And I just feel like that's going to be the storyline again. Like, sometimes at Ohio State, you have to wait your turn and go through injuries, and then you can have that one season, your last year. I mean, look at Devon Hamilton, obviously not a defensive end, but the same type of deal. I mean, had to wait through a lot of stuff. But then when you finally do get that last season, you're ready to make big plays, and I think he can definitely do that.
Even someone like Justin Ehlinger, finally came back from all of his injuries last year. He's in with Linebackers, but he finally maybe got a chance to make some plays, and he'll be back this coming year from his 6th year in the program. So maybe he'll get more playing time as well. Because he really impressed me with some of the plays he made this past year when he got a chance to play.
It's going to be tough to earn playing time alongside all the linebackers they have, though. We'll see.
Yeah. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of John Baptiste and Tyler Friday? We kind of think there'll be more depth pieces just with all the talent on defensive ends they had, but what do you guys think they'll be able to produce with the reps they do get, with how much rotation they'll be getting?
Personally, I feel like John Baptiste has a lot of upside. I feel like he's one of my sleeper guys that will surprisingly produce a great amount. I just like the way he plays, the energy he plays with, his body type, and just all those things, right? But as far as Tyler Friday goes, I feel like he's more of a depth piece to this team. I just don't see him being one of those premier DNs like a Zach Harrison or a Tyree Smith. But I feel like John Baptiste, however, is one of those type of players. So I think both of them bring something unique to the table, but I personally like Javonte.
I think Javonte's more in the mold of a classic edge rusher for Ohio State. Tyler comes off to me as someone who can more lock down the edge on the run and hold his own at the point of attack more so than get to a quarterback in a pass pro. And that has its place in a defense, right? Maybe we see Tyler Friday used more in a situation where someone needs a break on a short yardage situation. If that's also how Larry Johnson used him. But I kind of agree with Khalid's assessment. I think John Baptiste has more upside, but they're both solid depth pieces at Ohio State when started most Big Ten programs. Just not Ohio State when you're constantly getting 4- and 5-star or top 10 draft pick caliber defensive ends like Chase Young, the Bosa's, now Zach Harrison, and maybe Tyreek Smith. If Tyreek breaks out this year, like some people are saying he could.
Yeah. And then
Chase has said in the past that he could, but we'll see.
Yeah. And Zach Harrison's someone who I think all 4 of us are really expecting to kind of be the next Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa player for Ohio State, and are just really looking for him to have a really good season in his sophomore year. And we've already mentioned it, but there were just so many flashes when he got a chance to play where you just saw that raw athleticism and skill. I think another year in the program is just really going to help him reach that next step. And he's only going to be a true sophomore, so I'm really excited to see what his career is going to shape up to be at Ohio State. What do you think, Griff?
About Zach Harrison?
Yeah, what do you think?
Oh, I definitely think. I mean, everything you just said. It's just about. I mean, think about how you saw like Chase Young a couple years ago, versus what he ended up becoming.
Mhm.
It's just about putting it together. Because I mean, you do see guys that come to Ohio State as huge recruits and 5-stars and whatnot, and they don't pan out the way you were expecting. I don't see that happening with Zach Harrison necessarily, but I mean, it's possible.
Mhm.
But he's got all the tools. I mean, he's got the body type, and I think that's what you guys are talking about with John Baptiste as well. Is he's just got his frame is just that modern,
All
DA.
lean, athletic.
Yeah. Tall, wiry, and Zach Harrison's the same type of thing.
All right. Well, unless you guys had anything more to say on the defensive line, I think that's all we can say about them. Do we want to jump into talking about linebackers, or do you think we're good for this episode? Because
I think we're probably solid on this one.
Yeah.
the feeling I'm starting to get.
Save some more to preview for later.
Yeah, next week we'll be back to you guys for another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. Maybe we'll have more
Only
news
two
to talk
left.
about.
Will next
Yeah.
week be our pod, our final one, or the week after?
I don't even know, man.
And the week after, I think we graduate the third.
We graduate the third, so
That'll be the first.
it's
It's a special looking back on our times episode for
Yeah.
our grand
Just-
finale.
Episodes
we've had some good times, some crazy times in Texas roadhouses and 12-hour drives to Nebraska and 10-hour drives to Rutgers and all the memories. It's been a crazy ride, but we'll be back with you guys next week for more content. Stay safe with everything going on. Keep up social distancing and have a great day. Peace.
Peace.